Hi all, and welcome to the first of your videos for lesson number 2. Okay, so this is what we're aiming to cover over in lesson 2, and as per the pre-course info, I'm going to try and keep these videos nice and short, so you'll probably have 3 or 4 15, 20-minute videos, and it'll give you flexibility then of how you want to work through them. Okay, so what we're aiming to cover is I'll give you an introduction to the data science project. I'm going to give you a breakdown of data types, formats, a little bit more detail on that, measures of central tendency, a little refresh for some of you on the difference between relative and absolute referencing. And then there are a couple of Excel for Power BI videos to go through. I'll cover that when we get to there. Now, depending which course you're on, this one here, the completion date's the 24th of November, but obviously, if you're on a different instance of this course, just check your completion dates and it'll make sense there. Right then. Excel, data types and formats. Hugely important. Now, whether we're using Excel, Python, Power BI, we must know the difference between these two. It really affects how things work. The main types of data, number, text, Boolean, and date. So that affects how Excel or any other language holds and manipulates that data. Obviously, if it's held as a number, I can add it, average it, whatever, manipulate that. A little bit different, obviously, with text. I can find an average of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slightly more difficult, find an average of Rick, David, Bob, and Ahmed. Boolean. You may or may not have come across that phrase before. If you've done much Excel before, an if statement. So you've got if such and such, you've got true and a false. So it's like a switch, true or false, bacon or sausage, red or black, Manchester United or City. I don't know anything about football. But Boolean can only be one or the other. You've used it all the time. Every time you fill in an online form, there's a little checkbox. If you tick it, it's on. If you don't tick it, it's off. There's no third option. If you remember back to the little introduction last week about the history of data science, and in the 1800s, they came up with the counting machine. There was a punch for on and a not punch for off. That's an example of Boolean. Date's obviously also important. We never hold your ages in a database. Some of you might have a birthday tomorrow, so it goes out of date. So instead, we hold your date of birth. And then if I wanted to find out how many people were over the age of 25, there's a formula that subtracts today's date from your date of birth, and it gives us the answer. If we don't hold your date of birth, in that case, as a date, it's not going to work. Every month has got a different number of days in it. Every 4 years, there's a different number of days in the year, and so on. But if we store it as a date, we can work with that. So they're your main data types, and data formats are a wee bit different. And you've used formatting since, probably primary 7. If you were to write, for instance, data education in colleges in Word, and you change the font and the size and the colour, that's you formatting it. It still says data education in colleges, it's just got a different colour, different size, and so on. No different here. If I put 23.45 into a spreadsheet, that's what Excel's using. It's using that decimal number. I might want to show it as a whole number. Excel will still hold it as a decimal number. I might want to show it as a currency, a percentage, whatever. Excel doesn't care, or any other programming language. So they're just different ways, formats, think of it, different ways of showing the data as opposed to different ways of holding it. That's the main difference there. We'll get to this measures of central tendency in a minute, but we've got a little bit more down there, more detail about formats. We've got basically a refresher of what I've just said. However, you'll also come across data formats talking about the way the actual data set's held. The most common one, CSV, which stands for comma separated values, also called comma delimited values. And all that means is that's how the data's held in the spreadsheet. So it's delimited, or in other words, there's a comma between each element of that data. And the reason that so many large data sets are held online as CSV rather than Excel, it means they can be opened by anything. They can open by Excel, Python, Power BI, and so on. And you'll find that all the time. There's some other bits and pieces there for you to read through, but the main ones you'll see are CSV rather than Excel. So your data formats within the data set are usually currency, percentage, integer, just another word for whole number, float or floating point, another name for decimal number, but it is vital from the very start that we've got the difference between the two of them. Okay. Measures of central tendency. All important, but I'm going to bash through these. Mean, not really. Mean is just the statistical word for average, and it's the one that you've done since, again, primary 7. If you've got a class of 12 students and 6 of them are 17, 6 of them are 18, you want to find out the average or mean, add them all up, divide by 12, you should get 17.5. I'll get to mode in a minute, but median. Median is the middle value of a data set. Using that example I just did with you, I've got 12 students, 6 of them are 17, 6 of them are 18. Add me in, 55. Your average is going to go right up, and it's going to give you a kind of false reading about the overall breakdown of that class. So instead of mean, particularly with large data sets, we use median. Median is a middle number. So if there were, I don't know, 5,000 17-year-olds, 5,000 18-year-olds, and then me, median would still give you an answer of just about 17.5 because it takes the middle number. So any outliers is what we call them, really high, really low, they kind of get ignored. So you'll find that when we do data analysis and we go into big data sets, median is the one we tend to use all the time. Mode, the value that appears most frequently, in other words, the most common one. Businesses use this all the time. A little bit of background, back in 2002, I launched GHD hair straighteners. I'm selling hair products at the time. Now, we would sell products, we sell straighteners to mostly female, but not necessarily all, 16s to 70-year-olds. No business can market a product the same way to a 16-year-old as you would to a 70-year-old. Doesn't work. So you would look for your group of modes. So in other words, if my most common customers were between, most common number of them, not they live in, I don't know. Anyway, the most common numbers were between, say, 25 and 30. That's where my target's going to go. That's where my marketing is going to go, because that's the most common value, most common range within that age group. They're all important. And your fourth one, which isn't up in their range, is just a difference between the highest and the lowest. Okay, so it might be that your lowest is 60 and your highest is 75. Your range is only 15 there. All right, so we'll pause it there. I'm going to come back and go through and explain this rather creepy photo. There is a reason. And I'll speak to you back in a wee minute. Thank you. Bye-bye.